Why is this upside down?
Because it's the two.
Oh. All right, Stephanie.
Hello, everybody. It's been a minute since we did that Twilight series we started a couple of years ago.
At the beginning of the channel, when we thought, you know, the anniversary was just the best time to try to do another chapter.
We will be reading chapter 4 of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer.
Oh, that's the wrong side. That's the right side.
I have the 10th anniversary edition.
That explains also why it's so big.
Yeah.
because I
Because
don't remember
half
Twilight.
of it is the other book.
Right.
Remember, this is the gender swapped version.
With a Granny Smith apple on the cover instead of the, what is it, a Red Delicious?
As we know, there are two genders. Red Delicious and Green Apple. No other apples exist. If you haven't watched any of the other ones where we've done this, we started this series because we were inspired by Jenny Trout's online chapter by chapter recaps, that's it. Recaps of 50 Shades of Grey.
We had thought about doing that, but we don't want to buy a copy of 50 Shades of Grey. And also it's taken us so long to do each one of these that we would never finish. We would be reading 50 Shades of Grey until we were gray and dead, mostly. We usually do a synopsis of like what happened in the first couple of parts of the book. We're only 4 chapters in.
It's been 2 years,
It's been 2
so
years.
I don't remember what happened.
It's also Twilight. It's been over 10 years since Twilight came out. Chapter 4, Invitations. In my dream, it was very dark, and what dim light there was seemed to be radiating from Edward's skin. I couldn't see his face, just his back as he walked away from me, leaving me in the blackness. No matter how fast I ran, I couldn't catch up to him. He was in my dreams nearly every night, but always on the periphery, never within reach. Because that's not what's actually happening in her real life or anything. I sounded like Winnie the Pooh.
You know, characters in books have such like cryptic but, you know,
Obvious dreams.
metaphorical, like helpful dreams. I have dreams where like I get voted on a reality show and then lizard people attempt to kill me and then it changes and suddenly I'm being chased by a rosemary plant. Like, they're the weirdest things.
Lizard people.
Bella is perfect for, you know, YA heroine because her dreams are, you know,
About
prophetic.
the guy she likes.
I can't remember what I dreamed about last night, but like the day before.
Something about Chris Evans. You had a dream with Chris Evans in it.
How do you know that?
You told me.
What? I have no memory of that.
You told me.
This morning?
Yeah.
Really?
Either this morning or yesterday morning, yeah.
You're not screwing with me?
No.
That doesn't even sound familiar, but I believe you. My memory gets worse every year. Let's continue.
This is after she almost gets hit by the van at school.
Oh, okay.
Because the next sentence is...
So that's already happened.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The next sentence is, the month that followed the accident was uneasy, tense, and at first embarrassing.
You know, I remember this because the previous chapter is like in the hospital.
And he
deal about me.
gaslights her.
He like gaslights her in this way to where she's like, no. You're very, very bad at this. Because, like, he says, like, really, like, outlandish things about, like, no, I wasn't even anywhere near you. And
then he gets
like,
into territory of, like, nobody would believe you if you told them. And she's like, I didn't say I was going to.
This is when Bella meets
Carlisle, yeah.
And she's like, dang. Okay.
I get why my dad has a crush on him.
I get why my dad has a crush on him.
To my dismay, I found myself the center of attention for the rest of that week. Tyler Crowley was impossible. Which one is Tyler? I remember Mike and Eric and no one else.
Nope.
Don't.
I know that Mari hates this book. I know she hates Bella.
Yeah.
If you are into books and you're not watching My Name is Marinas, you should be. She's a good friend of ours.
She also runs BookNet Fest, which is a small book festival convention type thing in Orlando. I was on a panel last year and this year, and I love BookNet Fest, so definitely look into that as well.
Let's continue with the book that she hates.
I tried to convince him what I wanted more than anything else was for him to forget all about it, especially since nothing had actually happened to me, but he remained insistent. He followed me between classes and sat at our now crowded lunch table. Mike and Eric were even less friendly toward him than they were toward each other, which made me worry that I'd gained another unwelcome fan. It's really just like Stephanie being overhanded and being like, everybody loves this girl because she's new and shiny, and Mike and Eric are constantly fighting over her. And they're mean to each other because of this girl that really, honestly, like, not that I don't think she's worth it, but she's like very clearly not interested in that kind of attention.
There are a couple different options here with Bella's character, and I think we've talked about this in these other videos, is that, I mean, from the way that she's written, you can interpret that, like, she just has, you know, your kind of garden variety, teenage anxiety, and insecurity, and the kind of coming to terms with, like, being a person. Or you can see it as, like, she's a teenager with, like, some sort of, like, social anxiety.
Right.
Which I think you can make the case for. Neurotypical authors pick up on the things that people who are not neurotypical do, and they write characters without realizing that the traits that they are picking up on are not just, you know, individual quirks, but sometimes are, or often are, the result of neurodivergence. So, yeah, kind of like how I feel about Ed of Green Gables.
No one seemed concerned about Edward, though I explained over and over that he was the hero, and how he had pulled me out of the way and had nearly been crushed too.
That's because nobody likes Edward.
I tried to be convincing. Jessica, Mike, Eric, and everyone else always commented that they didn't even see him there till the van was pulled away. I wondered to myself why no one else had seen him standing so far away before he was suddenly, impossibly saving my life. No one else was as aware of Edward as I always was. No one else watched him the way I did. How pitiful. I wanted very much to talk to him, and the day after the accident I tried. He was already seated when I got to biology, looking straight ahead. I sat down, expecting him to turn toward me. He showed me no sign that he realized I was there. And that was the last contact I'd had with him, though he was there, a foot away from me every day. I watched as his golden eyes grew perceptibly darker day by day. She's the only one noticing this, I am 100% sure of that. But in class, I gave no more notice that he existed than he showed toward me. I was miserable, and the dreams continued.
Not the fun kind of dreams. Despite my outright lies, the tenor of my emails alerted Renee to my depression. Right, I forgot that she calls her mom by her first name.
Right. The book really wants you to believe that, like, Renee is essentially Amy Poehler's character from Mean Girls. I'm not like other moms, I'm a cool mom.
Well, Bella seems to kind of see her mom more as like a sister rather than a than a caretaker of her. And I wonder if part of that is an attempt to appeal to that kind of, like, that self-insertion fantasy of not being anyone's child, but being your own person.
Right.
Which makes it easier for her to do, like, dangerous, weird adult stuff. The snow washed away for good after that one dangerously icy day. Mike was disappointed he'd never gotten to stage his snowball fight, but pleased that the beach trip would soon be possible. What?
And it's just like being from Florida.
It was snowy enough for there to be a snowball fight, and y'all are gonna go to the beach? That sounds fake, but whatever. Jessica made me aware of another event looming on the... Oh yeah, this rain, it kept raining. Jessica made me aware of another event looming on the horizon. She called the first Tuesday of March to ask my permission to invite Mike to the Girls' Choice Spring Dance in 2 weeks. Are you sure you don't mind? You weren't planning to ask him? She persisted when I told her I didn't mind in the least. No, Jess, I'm not going, I assured her.
Bella is like the only observant teenager in this high school. Mike and Eric don't ever pick up on her, like, please leave me alone moods. And Jessica doesn't realize that, like, Bella really doesn't want to be with Mike.
Yeah, I think something at least about Bella is that she seems to possess a little bit more honesty than a lot of her peers. She's not, like, blunt or truthful in, like, a quirky way. I think she's more truthful and honest in the way that you would expect somebody who's relatively well adjusted to be honest and just tell you about how they're feeling. Like,
somebody that's had to, like, take care of herself essentially for a while.
I know enough about the writing in 50 Shades of Grey to know that, like, one of the biggest critiques about the main character is that, like, she will say something And then her internal monologue will completely disregard the thing that she just said. So she's very dishonest in that way. But Bella seems to actually say what's on her mind and she means it. I think that's a good quality to have. Like, honesty's good, emotional intelligence is good. It'll be really fun. Her attempt to convince me was half-hearted. I suspected that Jessica enjoyed my inexplicable popularity more than my actual company. You have fun with Mike, I encouraged. The next day I was surprised that Jessica wasn't her usual gushing self in trig and Spanish. She was silent as she walked by my side between classes, and I was afraid to ask her why. If Mike had turned her down, I was the last person she would want to tell. See what I mean? I think she picks up on at least the ways that people act. Like, she seems very observant about human behavior.
Yeah, and she doesn't seem to be inherently insecure about what other people, like how other people are behaving around her. Like, she's not immediately just like, what did I do? Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't blame herself. I've read quite a few books, YA, but also an embarrassing amount of adult fiction where the female main character is incredibly self-deprecating and just blames themselves at every opportunity, and it comes from a lack of feeling like they are worthy of existing.
Right.
And I hate it. And it's not that that doesn't happen, it's more that, like, I almost never read a male character who does that. And when a male character does do that, it's not seen as this sort of like normal, well, of course she feels that way, she's a woman kind of thing. That's the implication when I read that sort of thing with a female character. So I give points when a female character just doesn't automatically blame themselves for everybody else's unhappiness. So, Mike said, looking at the floor, Jessica asked me to the spring dance. That's great! I made my voice bright and enthusiastic. I think that's another interesting choice of like, I made my voice bright and enthusiastic. I told her I had to think about it. Why would you do that? I let disapproval color my tone, though I was relieved he hadn't given her an absolute no. His face was bright red as he looked down again. Pity shook my resolve. I was wondering if, well, if you might be planning to ask me. But I saw from the corner of my eye Edward's head tilt reflexively in my direction. Mike, I think you should tell her yes. I didn't want to get into the safety hazards that dancing presented, so I quickly made new plans. I'm going to Seattle that Saturday, so you shouldn't make Jess wait any longer, it's rude. Yeah, you're right, he mumbled, and turned, dejected, to walk back to his seat. I closed my eyes and pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to push the guilt and sympathy out of my head. Mr. Banner began talking. Science, Bruce! I sighed and... I'm so funny!
I couldn't believe the rush of emotion pulsing through me, just because he'd happened to look at me for the first time in half a dozen weeks. I couldn't allow him to have this level of influence over me. It was pathetic. More than pathetic. It was unhealthy. Okay, at least she, like, acknowledges it.
She might even be a slightly bit harsh on herself, considering that, like, when you are infatuated by somebody, like, I think that's a pretty normal reaction as far as, like, wanting to know what they're doing. But she seems to know, like, what the boundary is. Which is funny, considering some of the boundaries that get crossed later.
We'll get there eventually, maybe, who knows. When the bell rang at last, I turned my back to him to gather my things, expecting him to leave immediately as usual. Bella? His voice shouldn't have been so familiar to me. What, are you speaking to me again? I finally asked, an unintentional note of petulance in my voice.
Dang, girl.
That's the Charlie in her. I just really like Charlie. No, not really, he admitted. I closed my eyes and inhaled slowly through my nose, aware that I was gritting my teeth. He waited. Then what do you want, Edward? I'm sorry, he sounded sincere. I'm being very rude, I know, but it's better this way, really. Just stop brooding for 2 seconds. It's better if we're not friends, he explained. Trust me. My eyes narrowed. It's too bad you didn't figure that out earlier, I hissed through my teeth. You could have saved yourself all of this regret.
What?
Regret, wait. No, yeah. Okay.
That's why I was confused.
It's a little weirdly written, yeah.
Here, I'll do Edward.
It's too bad you didn't figure that out earlier, I hissed through my teeth. You could have saved yourself all of this regret.
Regret? The word in my tone obviously caught him off guard. Regret for what?
For not just letting that stupid van squish me.
That's dark! But snarky. Yeah. I like it.
He was astonished and stared at me in disbelief. I made that much shorter than it is, because why do you have 2 sentences there? When he finally says a very nitpicky thing, but it's fine. You think I regret saving your life? I know you do, I snapped. You don't know anything. He was definitely mad. I didn't read it that way, but it's fine. Jim was brutal.
I feel like there almost should be white space there.
Yeah, probably.
Between, like, Jim without looking back and then Jim was brutal.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like a good place to have some white space.
Yeah. I fell down a lot. Sometimes I took people with me.
Bella fell down? What?
The truck had suffered only minimal damage in the accident. Tyler's parents had to sell their van for parts. That's rough. Hi, Eric, I called. Hey, Bella. What's up?
You could adapt this and make it a lot funnier
Yeah.
than the movies are.
I wasn't paying attention to the uncomfortable edge in his voice, so his next words to me took me by surprise.
I was just wondering if you would go to the spring dance with me. God damn it, Eric.
First of all, isn't it Lady's Choice? Isn't it like a Sadie Hawkins?
That's literally the next line. His voice broke on the last word. Thank you for asking me, but I'm going to be in Seattle that day. Oh, he said. Well, maybe next time. Sure, I agreed and then bit my lip. I wouldn't want him to take that too literally. He slouched off, back toward the school. I heard a low chuckle. Edward was passing past the front of my truck, looking straight forward, his lips...
Of course he was.
Lips pressed together like a jerk. That's not what's there, but...
It's funnier that way.
I revved the engine deafeningly and reversed out into the aisle. Edward was in his car already 2 spaces down, sliding out smoothly in front of me, cutting me off. Like a jerk! Oh my god! He stopped there to wait for his family. I could see the 4 of them walking this way, but still by the cafeteria. I considered taking out the rear of his shiny Volvo.
I just have to say, I hate it when people pull out of parking spots and then just sit there. Move! I have to get out of my parking spot too. You're not the only one in this universe, friend. God, Edward. Whoa!
I considered taking out the rear of his shiny Volvo, but there were too many witnesses. A line was beginning to form. Directly behind me, Tyler Crowley was in his recently acquired used Sentra, waving. I was too aggravated to acknowledge him. I mean, just the way she kind of talks about how she, like, plans social interactions and the way she reacts, it reminds me of the way that, you know, chronically ill people use, like, the spoon theory. And I'm kind of leaning towards a neurodivergent Bella that she's written.
Just, like, not intentionally, yeah.
Not intentionally. Just from the way that she is written, I mean, you can definitely make that case. While I was sitting there, looking everywhere but at the car in front of me, I heard a knock on my passenger side window. I looked over. It was Tyler. I swear to God, if Tyler's about to ask her to the dance...
I don't think he is. Maybe. I could be wrong.
I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm stuck behind Cullen. Oh, I know. I just wanted to ask you something while we're trapped here. He grinned. This could not be happening. Will you ask me to the spring dance? He continued.
I was wrong.
I'm not going to be in town, Tyler! My voice sounded a little sharp. I had to remember it wasn't his fault that Mike and Eric had already used up my quota of patience for the day. Yeah, Mike said that, he admitted. Then why? He shrugged. I was hoping you were just letting him down easy. Oh!
I can't tell if Tyler is asking her because he likes her the way that Eric and Mike do, or if he's just like, I feel really bad for almost running you over and killing you, so will you just ask me to go to this dance so I can make it up?
Or he thought almost killing her with his car was a nice meet cute. What a story to tell our children someday, Bella.
Well, her daughter wouldn't be named Renesmee.
That's true.
So.
That's cool. We still have prom. What the f***? No! In his rearview mirror, Edward's eyes were on me. He was unquestionably shaking with laughter, as if he'd heard every word Tyler had said. My foot inched toward the gas pedal. One little bump wouldn't hurt any of them. Just that glossy silver paint job. Edward was speeding away. I drove home slowly, carefully, muttering to myself the whole way. That is good, you stupid Edward Cullen!
There's something about the way you did that where I'm like, you could have played Bella, like, and it would have been
thank
so
you.
funny.
My teenage self is very flattered.
Yeah.
The phone rang. It was Jessica, and she was jubilant. Mike had caught her after school to accept her invitation. She had to go. She wanted to call Angela and Lauren to tell them. You have no recollection of Lauren. I remember who Angela is because Angela's
Jessica.
Cool.
It's funny, I'm pretty sure she picks up, like, a house phone.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have a cell phone.
Right! My head was spinning, trying to analyze every word Edward had spoken today. What did he mean it was better if we weren't friends? My stomach twisted as I realized what he must have meant. He must see how absorbed I was by him. He must not want to lead me on, so we couldn't even be friends, because he wasn't interested in me at all. That's like the closest in this chapter where she's come to, like, blamey insecurity, and I don't think it's an entirely ridiculous conclusion to come to given his behavior.
Yeah.
Like...
His gaslightiness.
Yeah.
Of course he wasn't interested in me, I thought angrily, my eyes stinging. A delayed reaction to the onions. Isn't though? Well, that was fine. I could leave him alone. I would leave him alone. I focused my thoughts on sunny beaches and palm trees as I finished the enchiladas and put them in the oven.
People make that argument that like Bella's really boring and she, she's that blank slate so that the reader can kind of project themselves onto her. And I think that she does have personality. I do think that she lacks interests. She likes to read and she likes the sun, but we don't know much beyond that. Like, we don't know if she has any career aspirations. We don't know if she has any particular hobbies or interests.
Right.
Like, I think that's the big thing.
That's all right, Dad. I'll probably just be... Oh, no. I'll probably just be in dressing rooms all day. Very boring. Oh, okay. The thought of sitting in women's clothing stores for any period of time immediately put him off. Thanks. I smiled at him. Will you be back in time for the dance? Grrr. It's written that way. The next morning when I pulled into the parking lot, I deliberately parked as far as possible from the silver Volvo. I didn't want to put myself in the path of too much temptation and end up owing him a new car.
That was literally the thought I had of why she would park far away from him. Like, probably so she didn't go key his car. There's no good down that road.
Getting out of the cab, I fumbled with my key and it fell into a puddle at my feet. As I bent to get it, a white hand flashed out and grabbed it before I could. Of course it did. I jerked upright. Edward Cullen was right next to me, leaning casually against my truck. You told her that you can't be friends with her. Why are you doing this? You piece of shit. Oh my god.
I'm just picturing Edward like casually against my truck. Hello, Bella. Looks like I'm not
Anastasia. I know why. I know like what his motivation is for coming over and putting her through this torture when he has told her the day before that they can't be friends. But like, just coming from her position at this point in the book, like, why?
I can really appreciate Bella's, like, anger crush that she has, where she's just like, Edward Cullen and his goddamn stupid permanent face! Ah! He's just the worst! And I would totally kiss him if he wanted me to. I really relate to that.
How do you do that? I asked in amazed irritation. Do what? Appear out of thin air. Bella, it's not my fault if you are exceptionally unobservant.
Oh, wow.
She is the single most observant person in this entire school. You just... off. His voice was quiet as usual, velvet, muted. I scowled at his perfect face. Why the traffic jam last night? I demanded, still looking away. I thought you were supposed to be pretending I don't exist or not irritating me to death.
Is that in the book?
Yes! That was for Tyler's sake, not mine. I had to give him his chance, he snickered. No, what you wanted to do was to let him make a fool out of himself so you could sit there and laugh like a smug douchebag.
Wow.
I don't like Edward now.
I don't even know what words to bleep anymore. Like,
we're rated R now, it's fine. I couldn't think of a bad enough word. It felt like the heat of my anger should physically burn him, but he only seemed more amused.
Does it feel like the book is attacking us?
I didn't really know these emotions towards people. Like, I didn't really have people that acted this way in my life. And now I'm like, I have a much bigger worldview because I'm, you know, so active on the internet. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, Bella, these feelings are so relatable. The last, like, 2 things that we've been like, we would have these reactions, she immediately had that reaction.
I know.
After, so.
And I'm not pretending you don't exist, he continued. So you are trying to irritate me to death, since Tyler's van didn't do the job. Anger flashed in his tawny eyes. His lips pressed into a hard line, all signs of humor gone. Aw, what about your playful banter about Bella dying? Morbid teenagers. Bella, you are Bella, you are utterly absurd, he said, his low voice cold.
Why is he angry at her? This is his own fault.
My palms tingled. I bet she wants to slap him.
Yeah.
I wanted so badly to hit something.
Ooh.
I wanted to ask you something, but you sidetracked me, he chuckled. I heard you say you were going to Seattle that day, and I was wondering if you wanted a ride. That was unexpected. What? I wasn't sure what he was getting at. Do you want to ride to Seattle? With who? I asked mystified.
Yeah, because yesterday he told her they shouldn't be friends. This is emotional whiplash.
Myself, obviously. He enunciated every syllable as if he were talking to someone mentally handicapped. Okay, more ableism. Just so you know, to the writers out there, handicap's an outdated word. Even, you know, the parking spots that we used to call handicap parking spots, it's just...
The placard says disabled. It is a parking by disabled placard only.
And if you want to be more inclusive to people who maybe are just temporarily disabled or whatever, like Disney calls it accessible parking.
Right.
They call it the accessible parking lot, which I think is a perfectly fine way to say it.
Yeah.
So, I was still stunned. Why? Well, I was planning to go to Seattle in the next few weeks, and to be honest, I'm not sure if your truck can make it.
Why is he to be such a dick?
I do get where he's coming from. It is a very, like, it's a raggedy truck, but...
He doesn't have to be that much of an asshole, though.
Mighty presumptuous of you.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing you say jokingly once you have a rapport with somebody. It's rude to just say that outright to somebody.
Especially the day after you're like, let's not be friends.
Yeah. But can your truck make it there on one tank of gas? He matched my pace again. I don't see how that is any of your business. Stupid, shiny Volvo owner. The wasting of finite resources is everyone's business. He's that kind of asshole. Ugh. Honestly, Edward, I felt a thrill go through me as I said his name, and I hated it!
Okay, so the thing about the finite resources. If you Google top 10 richest fictional characters, Carlisle Cullen is a billionaire.
Which makes sense considering that he never does. He gets to keep his wealth forever.
So Edward doesn't get to say shit about finite resources.
Since Carlisle the billionaire isn't like taking out his competition by eating them.
I mean, you've got that there.
There can be one billionaire, and it's okay if it's Carlisle Cullen as long as he makes sure that there are no other billionaires.
Just like obtain the wealth of Jeff Bezos, because I know Carlisle, who's a surgeon, would share the damn wealth. So like, finite resources my ass, Edward.
I can't keep up with you. I thought you didn't want to be my friend. I said it would be better if we weren't friends, not that I didn't want to be. Oh, thanks. Now that's all cleared up. Heavy sarcasm. It was very clear from the way it was written that it was sarcastic. I feel
also,
this.
the fact that like heavy sarcasm is an actual sentence in this book, like just 2 words. Heavy sarcasm.
I'm fine with that. I realized I had stopped walking again. We were under the shelter of the cafeteria roof now, so I could more easily look at his face, which certainly didn't help my clarity of thought. I love how Bella is basically just like, these stupid goddamn hormones making me feel things I don't want to feel.
I went through puberty twice for this?
The movie's so good.
Yeah.
It would be more prudent for you not to be my friend, he explained, but I'm tired of trying to stay away from you, Bella. I feel like, actually, you know, there's a lot of, like, stupid stuff that Edward says to her, and I feel like often, especially at the beginning, she reacts the way a normal person would.
It gives me a lot of feelings of, like, Darcy and Lizzie. I don't dance if I can help it, and then later he's like, oh, what do you suggest to encourage affection? Asking for a friend. And Lizzie's like, dancing! His
eyes were gloriously intense as he uttered that last sentence, his voice smoldering. Will you go with me to Seattle? He asked, still intense. I couldn't speak yet, so I just nodded. He smiled briefly and then his face became serious. You really should stay away from me, he warned. I'll see you in class. I swear to God.
I know that he is not just any other 17-year-old asshole, but she doesn't know that he's not any other 17-year-old asshole.
We're gonna read another one, because why not? Chapter 5, Blood Type. I made my way to English in a daze. I didn't even realize when I first walked in that class had already started. Thank you for joining us, Miss Swan, Mr. Mason said in a disparaging tone. I hate it when teachers do that. I hate it! They know they're late! There's no need to do that. I know that teachers are like dead inside because the education system doesn't care about them, we don't pay them fair wages, but I think a strong case can be made for not always shaming your students just because it brings a little spark of joy back into your soul. Just a thought! I flushed and hurried to my seat. Mike seemed to become more himself as we walked, gaining enthusiasm as he talked about the weather report for this weekend. I know why, but it just sounds funny. Nerd.
She talks about her friends like they are 40. the way that she feels inside.
The rain was supposed to take a minor break, and so maybe his beach trip would be possible. I tried to sound eager to make up for disappointing him yesterday. It was hard. Rain or no rain, it would still only be in the high 40s, if we were lucky.
Yeah, if it's 40 here, bitches don't go to the beach.
No.
We stay home.
I just wanted to go sit down and sulk. Okay, honey. Edward Cullen is staring at you again, Jessica said, finally breaking through my abstraction with his name. Once he caught my eye, he raised one hand and motioned with his index finger for me to join him. I could feel her staring after me as I walked away. When I reached his table, I stood behind the chair across from him, unsure. This is different, I finally managed. Well... He paused, and then the rest of the words followed in a rush. I decided as long as I was going to hell, I might just do it. But, I decided as long as I was going to hell, I might as well do it thoroughly.
He's like really, really intense, and like because we've already read the book, we know why. But she doesn't have any context for this. She's just like, what you just said was f***ing weird.
It reminds me of how, like, at the beginning of Good Omens, Aziraphale's like, it's sushi. And it's what humans do. It's not because I like sushi. So if I'm going to be living amongst them, I must act like a human. And Edward, I don't think, even after 100 years, has exactly nailed the act like a human thing. Because otherwise he would know that, like, humans don't say that kind of stuff.
What's funny about that is that, like, Aziraphale has never been a human. Edward was one at one point.
I know! I waited for him to say something that made sense. You know I don't have any idea what you mean, I eventually pointed out. I know. He smiled again.
No context!
He smiled again and then changed the subject. He's like, I am nailing being a human. No one suspects anything. I think your friends are angry with me for stealing you. They'll survive.
I may not give you back, though, he said with a wicked glint in his eyes. I gulped.
Oh, Bella's a sub. I know what Bella likes.
That's the exact thought process that led us to 50 Shades of Grey. What brought all this on? I told you, I got tired of trying to stay away from you, so I'm giving up. He was still smiling, but his ochre eyes were serious.
Stephanie Meyer definitely, like, typed into the thesaurus different words for brown.
Right. Giving up, I repeated in confusion. Yes, giving up trying to be good. I'm just going to do what I want now and let the chips fall where they may. His smile faded as he explained, and a hard edge crept into his voice. He gets so angry so quickly.
Can you not believe that he is mentally and emotionally a 17-year-old for 100 years?
Like, some of the writing up there, that sounds awful.
I know.
That sounds so awful.
I was still learning how to be a person when I was 17.
I wasn't even like a fully fledged human being until well after college. It's fine. You lost me again. Because again, she has no idea. When did she figures it out so easily? He's just like, he's giving her all of the puzzle pieces. He just put the whole puzzle out on the table and he's like, okay, put it together.
As long as I don't suck someone's blood in front of her, I'm okay. I'm in the clear. But I'll say the most ominous shit. Like, no, honey, I've read books.
Yeah. I've seen
Y'all
Nosferatu. The breathtaking cricket smile reappeared. He, like, stopped smiling and then smiled again in, like, half a paragraph.
I thought you said cricket, and I was real confused. Edward doesn't just need human lessons, he needs therapy.
Exactly. I mean, like, if you're an immortal, you probably need therapy anyway.
Yeah.
Just, like...
Why not?
Like, living for that long, there's a reason we have death.
I feel like there should be vampire therapists, because it's not like you can be completely honest with a human therapist.
Right.
Like, they don't truly get the existential issues that you grapple with, you know?
Right. Yeah.
There's a market there.
Why
well, Tori should do something about that.
Like, yeah. I always say too much when I'm talking to you. That's one of the problems. What problems? Don't worry, I don't understand any of it, said Riley. So, in plain English, are we friends now? Friends, he mused. Dubious.
You know what? I thought I was, like, so attracted to this character when I was a teenager. I was clearly stupid.
Yeah.
All I can think when I hear him talk is, wow, this boy's an idiot. I know his secret. And I'm sitting there like, Carlisle and Esme need to smack some sense into you, need to sit you down and have a conversation about how to not be completely obvious. Like, wow.
So I don't think Carlisle or Esme are, like, physically capable of hitting a child, but also, like, that's why they have Rosalie and Emmett, because Rosalie is not afraid to do it.
Emmett would never do such a thing.
Emmett might do it if Rosalie asked him to.
Yeah, I know that, like,
Emmett's the bottom. It's the truth. But going off of what you were actually saying is that, like, so when I first read this, I was like, Edward, I wanna date Edward. And then I started taking those, like, personality quizzes and got Emmett, and all of a sudden it was like, the heavens were shining. I should have known that Thor would be my type.
Emmett is the embodiment of, like, your ideal partner.
Yeah. Because he's kind of like,
So is Rosalie, though. You could take both of them.
I would. If that was an option. Friends, he mused, dubious. Or not, I muttered. He grinned. Well, we can try, I suppose, but I'm warning you now that I'm not a good friend for you. Behind his smile, the warning was real. Okay. Are you saying that because you want to date her or eat her? Do you think you're not going to be good friends because you want to tap it, or because you, like, cannot stand the way she smells?
You know, actually... Tap in this instance works for both. Because, like, tap, like, what do you have on tap?
Right. Exactly. Wow.
This book doesn't deserve us.
You say that a lot, I noted, trying to ignore the sudden trembling in my stomach and keep my voice even.
Something has just occurred to me. He might think that he's flirting with her.
He's seen too many Batman movies.
It's just going over her head. He's just like, friends, dubious. And she's just like, the math equations are like, dancing over her face like, what?
Especially if we remember that Bella treats herself like she's 45 and Edward is 17.
She's like, honey, I've developed a hernia by the time you got to the point. Like,
I think you broke me. I looked down at my hands wrapped around the lemonade bottle, not sure what to do now. What are you thinking? He asked curiously. Ooh, because he can't hear her thoughts. I looked into his deep gold eyes, became befuddled, and as usual, blurted out the truth. I'm trying to figure out what you are. So we know the answer.
Clearly by this point she's like, this isn't a boy. He's an alien piloting a spaceship.
He's gone through the Men in Black.
Which is another Stephanie Meyer book.
Sure.
Well, it is. The host, that's what the host is about. It's like these weird floating aliens, they inhabit bodies.
Yeah, but
they fall in love.
It's not the Men in Black.
Well, no. I'm not saying Stephanie Meyer wrote Men in Black.
Are you having any luck with that? He asked in an offhand tone. Not too much, I admitted. He chuckled. What are your theories? I blushed. I had been vacillating during the... I have been vacillating during the last month between Bruce Wayne and Peter Parker. I mean, she's not that far off, to be very honest. Won't you tell me? He asked, tilting his head to one side with a shockingly tempting smile. How many smiles? It's like Mr. Potato Head. Like, I shook my head. Too embarrassing. That's really frustrating, you know, he complained. No, I disagree quickly, my eyes narrowing. I can't imagine why that would be frustrating at all. Just because someone refuses to tell you what they're thinking, even if all the while they're making cryptic little remarks specifically designed to keep you up at night wondering what they could possibly mean. Now, why would that be frustrating? He grimaced. I need my fan. So sweaty.
Hang on. I've got another one for you. Okay. I don't know where yours is, but I've got one here. Purse, but it's on hand here.
Wow, that's huge.
This is a Chinese martial arts fan. It's used for Chinese martial arts.
Or better, I continued, the pent-up annoyance flowing freely now. Say that a person did a wide range of bizarre things, from saving your life under impossible circumstances one day to treating you like a pariah the next, and he never explained any of that either, even after he promised. That also would be very non-frustrating. You've got a bit of a temper, don't you? Shut the f*** up! It's your fault! I don't like double standards.
You know what? Here's more of this whole, like, Bella says what's on her mind.
Yeah.
She is perceptive, and she knows what she's about, and she knows what's up.
She's actually 39.
Bella ages every time Edward says something cryptic.
Just like, boy, you are giving me crow's feet. You're giving me wrinkles and frown lines.
I can't wear this anymore. I'm too hot.
This video is a hot mess. We stared at each other. Now they're unsmiling. I don't know who you're talking about, I say frostily. Thanks. But I'm sure you're wrong anyway. I'm not. I told you most people are easy to read. Except me, of course. Because you couldn't even tell that I was frustrated at your very frustrating behavior.
It's my turn.
Oh, right, yes, you're right.
Yes, except for you. Aren't you hungry? He asked, distracted. No, I didn't feel like mentioning that my stomach was already full. Of butterflies! There's literally an M dash. Look, my stomach was already full. M dash of butterflies. Just one theory. I won't laugh. Yes, you will. I was positive about that. Please, he breathed. Please. Please. I'll figure it out eventually, I warned him. I wish you wouldn't try. He was serious again. Because what if I'm not a superhero? What if I'm the bad guy?
He's literally only going off of Dracula. I know. That's it. You know what he hasn't seen, clearly, is, not High School Musical. Halloween Town. Like, he's just never seen Halloween Town.
You're dangerous, I guessed, my pulse quickening as I intuitively realized the truth of my own words. He was dangerous. He'd been trying to tell me that all along.
So since he's not being clear with her and he's just giving her these cryptic little bits that really are not connecting, clearly, since she thinks he's Peter Parker, and she realizes now that he's dangerous, like, my mind immediately would go to, like, a serial killer. Like, maybe his family moves so much because he just keeps killing people.
But not bad, I whispered, shaking my head. No, I don't believe that you're bad. The silence lasted until I noticed that the cafeteria was almost empty. I jumped to my feet. We're going to be late.
I'm not going to class today, he said, twirling the lid so fast it was just a blur. Why not? It's healthy to ditch class now and then.
I'm laughing at the fact that he's like, I can't tell her my secret, I gotta be cryptic.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
With his super vampire strength, he's playing with the bottle lid and he's saying the things that people would never say. Like, whatever.
I hesitated, torn, but then the first bell sent me hurrying out the door, with a last glance confirming that he hadn't moved a centimeter. As I half ran to class, my head was spinning faster than the bottle cap. So few questions had been answered in comparison to how many new questions had been raised. At least the rain had stopped. Oh, no answers, none of them ever. Mr. Banner came in the room then, calling class to order. Okay, guys, I want you to take one piece from each box, he said as he produced a pair of rubber gloves from the pocket of his lab coat and pulled them on. The first should be an indicator card, he went on, grabbing a white card with 4 squares marked on it and displaying it. Okay, I'm already bored of this paragraph. The second is a 4-pronged applicator. I graduated high school. I don't want to go through this anymore.
Imagine how Edward feels.
I would retire. I would just be like, I might look sad. I'm homeschooled. I don't go out.
I would lie. I would say that I was 18 and I had already finished high school.
Right. I did classes online. He began at Mike's table again, carefully putting 1 drop of water in each of the 4 squares. I'm so uninterested in what's happening. He grabbed Mike's hand and jabbed the spike into the into the tip of Mike's middle finger. I swallowed convulsively, my stomach heaving. See, we didn't do this in my biology class.
It's also just weird to be like, come hither, student. Stab!
All around me, I could hear squeals, complaints, and giggles as my classmates skewered their fingers. Bella, are you all right? Mr. Banner asked. I can't not see Mark Ruffalo in this part now. Can someone take Bella to the nurse, please? He called. I didn't have to look up to know that it would be Mike who volunteered. Mike towed me slowly across campus. Just let me sit for a minute, please, I begged. He helped me sit on the edge of the sidewalk. I was still so dizzy. I slumped over on my side, putting my cheek against the freezing damp cement of the sidewalk, closing my eyes. That seemed to help a little.
That's hilarious to think about her just like lying on the ground. Like, and a teacher coming by and being like, Bella? A different voice called from the distance. No, please let me be imagining that horribly familiar voice. What's wrong? Is she hurt? His voice was closer now, and he sounded upset. I wasn't imagining it. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping to die.
Hoping to die.
You know, if this was written today, I wouldn't be surprised if she said things like, I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping for the sweet release of death. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Bella! Edward's voice was right beside me, relieved now. Can you hear me? No, I groaned. Go away. I'll take her, Edward said. I could hear the smile still in his voice. You can go back to class. No, Mike protested. I'm supposed to do it. Edward had scooped me up into his arms as easily as if I weighed 10 pounds instead of 110. You look awful, he told me, grinning.
Great, thanks.
Wow! I don't know how he opened the door while carrying me, but it was suddenly warm, so I knew we were inside. I was confused by that for a second, and then I remembered they're in a place where it's cold outside. I was like, what do you mean it's warm inside? They might as well be aliens. The grandmotherly nurse looked up from a novel, astonished as Edward swung me into the room. The nausea was already fading. Does this happen a lot? She asked. Sometimes, I admitted. Edward coughed to hide another laugh. You don't need to keep being a dick.
He's kind of patronizing, and
a little bit.
She doesn't know why.
He's just,
he doesn't give her context.
He's real smug.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of that is attractive. It's the cilantro, okay? You apply it sparingly. Anyways, you were right, I moaned, letting my eyes close. I usually am, but what in particular this time? The look you gave me. Because we knew exactly what he was gonna say.
I hate him.
You scared me for a minute there, he admitted after a pause. His tone made it sound like he was confessing a humiliating weakness. I thought Newton was dragging your dead body off to bury it in the woods.
What would give you that idea? The only way he would get that idea is if he were a serial killer. That's my thought process as Bella, who has no context for him being a vampire. He's dangerous. He says weird shit. He doesn't have any friends. His first thought is that puppy dog Mike Newton killed Bella and is going to bury her.
I thought Newton was dragging your dead body off to bury it in the woods. Ha ha.
She's braver than I am. She's sitting there laughing at that after everything that they've talked about.
They're perfect for each other. They're both equally morbid. Poor Mike. I'll bet he's mad. He absolutely loathes me, Edward said cheerfully. You can't know that, I argued. But then I wondered suddenly if he could.
I saw his face. I could tell. You saw his face? Bitch! How did you see me? I thought you were ditching. In my car, listening to a CD. That's his idea of ditching? He has like $1 million house out in the woods! What is he doing sitting in the parking lot of the school? He's basic. People can't smell blood, he contradicted. Well, I can. That's what makes me sick. It smells like rust and salt. And she's right.
She's right. You can smell blood.
He's just been a vampire for so long that he has no clue how humans function. What's funny about that is that they have biology together. He's literally learning about how human bodies function. And he just doesn't know.
You know, it's not like he actually has to remember any of the information to pass high school. He can just read other people's minds for the right answers.
I guess. That doesn't make me like him anymore. Mike came through the door then, glancing from me to Edward. You look better, he accused. Just keep your hand in your pocket, I warned him again. It's not bleeding anymore, he muttered. Are you going back to class? Are you kidding? I just have to turn around and come back here.
Yeah, she's right.
Yeah, I guess. So, are you going this weekend to the beach? While he spoke, he flashed another glare toward Edward. So the thing is, I don't blame Mike for throwing a glare at Edward, but also, like, I don't really like how, like, possessive of Bella Mike is.
Yeah, he's mighty presumptuous for somebody who's known her for, like, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
He needs some boundaries.
Yeah. I tried to sound as friendly as possible. Sure, I said I was in. We're meeting at my dad's store at 10. His eyes flickered to Edward again, wondering if he was going to give out too much information. I'll see you in gym then, he said, moving uncertainly toward the door. Gym, I groaned. I can take care of that. I hadn't noticed Edward moving to my side, but he spoke now in my ear. Bella has gym next hour, and I don't think she feels well enough. Actually, I was thinking I should take her home now. Do you think you could excuse her from class? His voice was like melting honey.
Thanks, I said as he followed me out. It's almost worth getting sick to miss gym. Anytime. He was staring straight forward, squinting into the rain. We were near the parking lot now. I veered left toward my truck. Something caught my jacket, yanking me back. Where do you think you're going? He asked, outraged. What the fuck? That's extreme. I was
confused. Would be way more endearing if he was like, where do you think you're going? Instead of, where do you think you're going?
I was confused. I'm going home. Didn't you hear me promise to take you safely home? Do you think I'm going to let you drive in your condition? His voice was still indignant.
What happened to the funny, like, sarcastic tone between the two of them?
I think that's the most consistent problem with their relationship, is just that he has a little bit of an issue modulating his emotions.
What's funny is that he's like, you have quite a temper, don't you? When she's calling
like,
him out on his
that's
bullshit.
rich.
Yeah. And then he's like, what a fucking hypocrite, Edward.
Let go, I insisted. He ignored me. You are so pushy, I grumbled. It's open, was all he responded. He got on the driver's side.
This is where people, you know, start to talk about Edward as an abuser.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly not listening to what she has to say or how she feels.
She might not be fine to drive home, but it's another thing entirely for him to insist, like, how dare you think that you can drive home by yourself?
Her father is the police chief.
Yeah.
He couldn't just call up Charlie and...
Like, just offer. Like,
yeah.
I would really feel better if you let me drive you home, and if not, like, maybe wait 30 minutes so that you can drive yourself home. Like,
where the hell is Rosalie when you need her? Just smack him.
I am perfectly capable of driving myself home. I stood by the car, fuming. It was raining harder now, and I'd never put my hood up, so my hair was dripping down my back. He lowered the automatic window and leaned toward me across the seat. Get in, Bella. Jesus. Ugh. I didn't answer. I was mentally calculating my chances of reaching the truck before he could catch me.
This is the problem with rich boys. All of them.
This is completely unnecessary, I said stiffly.
That kind of coercion is just not cute.
Yeah, this part's bullshit. He didn't answer. He fiddled with the controls, turning the heater up and the music down. As he pulled out of the parking lot, I was preparing to give him the silent treatment, my face in full pout mode. But then I recognized the music playing, and my curiosity got the better of my intentions. Claire de Lune? I asked, surprised. My mother plays a lot of classical music around the house. I only know my favorites. It's one of my favorites, too.
What is your mother like? He asked me suddenly. I don't think you get that information. No. She looks a lot like me, but she's prettier, I said. He raised his eyebrows. I have too much Charlie in me. Are you saying Charlie isn't a good-looking man, Bella? I know that's your dad, and it might be weird, but like, Charlie Swan? The original Hopper? Like, listen, I'm just saying, if it was like age appropriate, what?
Does David Harbour play her dad?
No, I'm just making a joke. But like, I'm just saying, if it was age appropriate, like if I could like now be in.
Where are you going with this?
I would date Charlie. That's what I'm saying. I mean, maybe not, because Charlie is the kind of guy that just seems like he needs somebody to take care of him, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like, I'm just not that kind of woman, so I want to be taken care of. I would be Charlie's friend. Anyway, that was just a little tangent about how attractive I think Charlie Swan is. Anyway, he'd stopped the car and I realized we were at Charlie's house already. The rain was so heavy that I could barely see the house at all. You don't seem 17. Yeah, because she's actually 40. I paused for a second. You don't seem much like a junior in high school yourself, I noted. He made a face and changed the subject. So why did your mother marry Phil? I want her to be happy. And he is who she wants. That's very generous. I wonder, he mused. Would she extend the same courtesy to you, do you think, no matter who your choice was? He was suddenly intent, his eyes searching mine. I think so, I stuttered. No one too scary, then, he teased. Where was this Edward 10 minutes ago? I grinned in response. What do you mean by scary? Multiple facial piercings and extensive tattoos? That's one definition, I suppose.
That's outdated.
What's your definition?
Serial killer.
Yeah. Do you think that I could be scary? He raised one eyebrow, and the faint trace of a smile lightened his face.
He definitely thinks he's flirting.
Yeah. My brain is like, serial killer!
Will you do something for me this weekend? He turned to look me straight in the face, utilizing the full power of his burning gold eyes. I nodded helplessly. Don't be offended, but you seem to be one of those people who just attract accidents like a magnet. So try not to fall into the ocean or get run over or anything, alright? He smiled crookedly. The helplessness had faded as he spoke. I glared at him. I'll see what I can do. I snapped as I jumped out into the rain. I slammed the door behind me with excessive force. He was still smiling as he drove away. Look at us! 2 chapters! At this rate, we'll be done by the time we're 40.
No biggie. So we've, like, started to get into weird, terrible Edward behavior. Obviously, the, like, obsessive... Possessive behavior is bad, but I think what's even worse about it is that he's a hypocrite.
Yeah. He doesn't respect the fact that she is allowed to make her own decisions.
Right.
And I get that he's concerned for her, but it doesn't really matter. You have to be flexible when people tell you no.
Yeah.
You have to respect that. Even if you genuinely believe that you know what's best for them. I mean, you might not because you're not them. But if you feel that way, consider the possibility that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Edward does not know how to convincingly talk like a human.
Why is he the only one in the family that doesn't know how to not reveal that he's a vampire? He's so obvious about it, but he's like obvious in this weird way, this weird gaslighty way that makes Bella think Bruce Wayne or Peter Parker, and you know, he's lucky that that's the worst that she thought, because my immediate thought process certainly goes to serial killer.
Well, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We filmed for like an hour and a half.
So long. My favorite part is definitely Bella being like, no, me not telling you things isn't frustrating, is it? Because you tell me nothing and it is so f***ing frustrating. I just need you to give me some information, you piece of shit.
Let Bella say f***.
I know. If she was born 35 anyway, just let her say
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, if you thought we were funny, go ahead and subscribe to us down below. If you're already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications so that you never miss a video. And we hope you stick around. One of us will see you real soon. Well, there's a point in the book where he says, I like all music except country and disco. And I'm like, really? All of country music? Though, to be fair, I remember when it was very cool to not like country music. But now Casey Musgraves is... Yay! I don't know what I'm saying.
Yay!